Since we're live streaming, you'll all want to be on your best behavior. In just a moment, Pat Welter's going to introduce our speaker this evening, but I want to be sure that a couple of thank yous get said. The first, I want to thank the Peace and Social Justice Committee, who really worked hard to have this evening happen, and especially the subcommittee that's working on immigrations, which would be Sandy Lawrence and Nancy McBride and Janine Provenzino. So those folks are, yes, you can clap. That's a good thing. And I also want to acknowledge all of the people that contributed to making this happen, because about 6 weeks ago, it looked impossible. I mean, we really were kind of panicky because we learned about faith formation happening downstairs, and we're like, you know, is this going to happen? But people on the committee, on the Peace and Social Justice Committee started brainstorming, how do we do this? We had conversations with Rick Bisdock in Faith Formation. Teresa Bizek and others in community came through with, hey, we can make this happen. They assured us that they could feed all of us. And so I really want to acknowledge and thank everybody who was part of that process. And then it's said in written form, but I really want to say thanks to the Will Ilias Foundation, who provided funding both for our speaker this evening and for the display. So with all of those are thank yous. Pat, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I think my voice is loud enough, but just for those people who always tell me. I know. So I just want to say, first of all, I'm really pleased and honored to introduce my friend Abdi Dussain for tonight's presentation. I've known him for probably 4 or 5 years, and I'm really honored to be his friend. He is the owner and the founder of the Blooming Kids Child Care Center in St. Cloud, which is near the library. He has an undergraduate and graduate degree from St. Cloud State University. And he also co-founded a nonprofit that helped college students with various pieces of their education. He spent 18 years in a refugee camp in Kenya, and I think he's probably going to tell us a little bit about that. He also worked with Lutheran Social Service for refugee services, and he has worked for the Initiative Foundation as a program officer for the Enterprise Academy. He is a recipient of the 5 Under 40 Award given by the St. Cloud Times to honor people who have demonstrated innovation, involvement, and influence in their workplace and community. So he's going to be talking tonight about his experiences as he immigrated here. And then when he's finished with his regular presentation, we're going to open it up for questions and answers. Abdi?
I gotta lift this up a little bit. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Pat, for that generous introduction. My name's Abdi Daisani. I was told that I will be speaking with you guys, for a few minutes and talk about 35 years of my life in that few minutes. So if I fumble around and don't make a lot of sense, tell me, because it's a lot of history to talk in few minutes, and I'll try to kind of summarize it a little bit. But to just say it again, my name's Abdi Daisani. I lived in St. Cloud. I can say now I think I'm a long-term resident here. I passed the decade, so if you hear more than a decade, that means you are a long-term resident, right? Went to school here at St. Cloud State. I feel that, I am, a person who can really claim St. Cloud because of all the things that this place gave me, personally and professionally. So I'm honored to be here with you all tonight and speaking to you. That's not me, right? Yeah. Yeah. I'm a father of a 5-year-old son who just started a kindergarten. I'm a small business owner, like Pat mentioned. We do have a child care center, but also I have a business consulting firm that I opened a few years back to support people who are just starting businesses, but don't know how to do business here in the United States. So a lot of the times, the immigrant communities that are trying to start a business. I am also a graduate from St. Cloud State University, so this place feels like home where we are right now, because I spent for the past 8 years, not the past, 8 years when I was here in St. Cloud State University, and I have been in this building before. I'm also familiar with being in a faith space. It feels home as well, because I spend faith places probably about 3-4 times, close to four times a day, whenever I go to the mosque for prayer, for 5 daily prayers. I don't spend the whole 5 times because I'm sleeping or either I'm busy at work. So, but I try to stop by and just meditate a little bit, and I appreciate for being here. And I was born in Somalia. Which many of you know, because we have a lot of Somali residents here in Minnesota. Minnesota has the largest Somali outside of East Africa here in Minnesota, anywhere else in the world. So one of the reasons why I came here when I came to US, because I started in another state called Nebraska. And And this is funny, because when I was told you're going to US, I was expecting New York, Minnesota, which I have heard because of the Somali communities, or LA, or things like that I'm familiar as a refugee kid. But Nebraska was like something that I never heard of it. So I'm like, let me look that on the map, because that's just doesn't make sense. Am I really going to US, or I'm going to somewhere else? So I had to double check. So I came from Nebraska and I moved to Minnesota. And I'll talk about all the good things that I really learned here and gain it. But I want to go back a little bit about growing up, or coming from my hometown, my home country, Somalia. The reason we left in Somalia is the civil war. Somewhere early in 1989, my years might not be exactly, because 88, 89, the central government of Somalia collapsed. Early 90s, 91, 90, they collapsed. And the country went into civil war. And because of that civil war, there was an influx of refugees leaving the country, going to either Ethiopia or Kenya, which is the neighboring country to Somalia. And we were kind of a middle, income family. My father was a civil servant. He was in the military. My mom was a businesswoman, so she was working and making her own money. And then civil war happened, and everything just went into chaos. And my family had to get out of the capital city, which I was born, Mogadishu, Somalia, to find safety in the neighboring country of Kenya. There was a reason why we went to Kenya and not necessarily Ethiopia at that time, because my father's side of the family were mostly in Kenya. And also there was a newly refugee camp that was just established in Kenya by the United Nations to manage the refugee influx that were coming from Somalia. So we went there, and if you look the map, leaving from Mogadishu all the way to Kenya is just not a very easy journey. It wasn't a flight, of course, we were refugees. We weren't having our own cars to travel to Kenya. We were mostly sometimes on food, sometimes some cars. And a lot of the times staying over some towns and just laying low until the violent a little bit, calms down so we can get to where we want to go. And also imagine if you have little kids, a mom and a dad with kids. We were 6 kids, and the oldest one were 12 years of age at that time. And I was the youngest, and I was 2 years old. And my father and mother trying to, move all these kids into all the chaotic environment and situation that we in to get us into safety. I asked once about my dad. I said, why wouldn't you just maybe stay where we were? And my dad tell me a few reasons, but one stick with me over the years. He said, I left because of the safety of your sisters. Out of that 6 siblings that we were, 4 of them were girls. And my dad said, there's no security. I won't protect my girls. And staying in a violent civil war country, I cannot protect my girls. So we had to move. And moving to the refugee camp, of course, until we get there, and right on the border, of course, the border folks will stop you in Kenya, and then the UN was working from the border because they couldn't get in the Somalia a lot of the times to accept the refugees that are coming in there. And it took us about 5-6 months before we get to the border. And we stopped a couple places, and the danger and uncertainty moving to the refugee camps or to the border, at least getting into the border, was a lot. And you don't know every checkpoint you're getting, whether it's gonna be someone from your tribe or the opposite tribe. And if you are getting to that checkpoint and someone who is not your tribe is there, chances are you're at their mercy, is what I'm saying. Those warlords, you're at their mercy. They might kill you because you're just not on their tribe. Or if they are your tribe and they believe that you are their tribe, they will let you go. So it was kind of a game for the folks who are going there to know who's gonna be in the checking point. And when you get there, you say the tribe that they are, even if you are not that tribe. So they can let you go, right? So, of all the things that you will lose, the emotional toll that's gonna take you to get to that journey is just a lot. Especially for the older generation, because for me, I was, like I said, I was just 2-year-old. And some of these times I will play and laugh and run around and just don't know what's happening. But my parents carry around that trauma and displacement and violence almost all their life. So we get to the refugee camp, right? And I will spend there for the next 18 years of my life. From being 2-year-old to the refugee camp until I was 20, I was in the refugee camp. Now, there was some stability in the refugee camp, but imagine a place where hope just feels elusive, right? And survival is just a daily struggle. Because everything you want to do that today is just, every day is just a struggle for you. And dreams are put on hold. That's the reality in the refugee camps. A lot of the people will just feel like, you have safety, but safety in the sense of safety wasn't there. You weren't safe because we didn't have a security people that are protecting. Now, if something happens, you call 911, right? Hopefully someone will be there to, but there's no security to call. The refugee also, there was no freedom of movement. You just confined that little, few kilometers in a 3 refugee camp that was established to hold 90,000 refugees, but holding close to 500,000 people. And you stay in that little place, and it's what some people called an open prison. You are in the refugee camp, you just can't get out of it. If you try to go to the rest of Kenya, because you don't have the ID and the proper documentation, you cannot go there. And if you stay in the refugee camp, there is no opportunities, the security and all that. So there was no there was some education system, but you can stay, you can get to up to high school. High school numbers was very low. If 100, let's say 100 students will graduate from 8th grade, only 20% of those might go to high school because that's the only space available for them. And once you finish your high school, you cannot go to university. There wasn't any university at that time when I was there, and that was as early as 2009. And healthcare system was non-existent. People who finished high school or 8th grade and lost the opportunity to go to high school are the doctors. They're the ones that are treating everyone. They find a job at the hospital, and they will be the people that you trust your life with to treat you with a lot of illness. So that was kind of the situation in the refugee camp in Kenya. That refugee camp I'm talking about is called the Dadaab Refugee Camp. It's one of the largest and oldest now, because it exists since 1991, that exists in the world. I don't think there's any other older refugee space in the world than that refugee camp. And that refugees still exists today. And around, I will say 250,000 population, when I last checked, live in that refugee camp with no hope of a better opportunity and better life. So I'm grateful that I'm here, so you guys can tell. For me, I always had hope for a better opportunity, for better education, for better health care, for access to opportunities that can help me or pave the way for a better life. And 15 years ago, when I received the opportunity to come to the United States, that changed my life forever. Even though I still have to look the map and figure it out where Nebraska was, right? But the thoughts of going to a country where I will get freedom of movement, especially, where I will get access to education, where I will get access to health care, and where I will be able to build my life for better, was something that I would have done anything for. And I was very grateful that I get it. Some people were getting some resettlement process elsewhere. There was only few that got to Australia. There was some that got to Sweden. I heard that those processes stopped now. And U.S. is probably the only place that's doing the resettlement for those refugee camps. Canada does other refugee camps, but mostly U.S. now is doing the Dadaab refugee camp. And those was during the past, I would say, 8 years, close to 7, 8 years now, that process is slowed down significantly, especially when President Donald Trump came, and that has stopped a lot of the process, and then opening it back up it's a slow process. But because of the opportunities that I got, I was able to dream again. So when I arrived in US 15 years ago, I went to school. I have no high school diploma at that time. I went back to school and I get my GED, which is a high school equivalent. And I went to college right away. Today I have my master's degree in public administration at St. Cloud State University. And I get an opportunity to start a business. I started one that take care of close to 120 children every day. Sometimes I say, this is a relief that I'm here because the daycare was closing around 7 p.m. tonight, so I had to leave a little early, and that's always exciting because it's a break, right? But I started that business, and I also became an employer. Once I opened the business, my center now employs over 30 employees. So including teachers, drivers, janitors, all of that, people working in the office. And those opportunities that I was giving, I tried to pay it forward so others can benefit from those opportunities. In addition to that, right, I was, and this is when I realized there is some challenges, and some challenges are sometimes universal. There is challenges everywhere. Even though this country provides a lot of opportunities, a lot of people cannot take advantage of those opportunities. So I started becoming engaged in the community. I have been actively engaged in a lot of different organizations, some life-changing organizations here in St. Cloud, both on their board or volunteerism in different projects, or working for them, as Pat mentioned, Lutheran Social Service, which is one of the organizations that resettled me into US. They were our sponsor organization, and I had the opportunity to become a senior refugee specialist for them, which gives me the opportunity to resettle folks like me and manage their case for the first 90 days there in US and help them all the things they need to understand in that 90 days in moving into a new country and with a new language and a new culture. And it's exciting. And it was definitely a way for me to give back, knowing that I was in those people's shoes just a few years ago. And when I started engaging those organizations, I realized there's challenges in our community. There is still a discrimination in workplaces. There's still a discrimination in almost every space, right? So I started to be involved in different organizations and support those organizations and those people and become an ally to those that I don't necessarily identify myself with, and jump beyond some issues that I feel like it's affecting directly to me. And I feel like that's usually, it's an American way. And if I'm talking too much, let me know, because I don't want to be keeping you guys here all night. And I faced a lot of other, personal prejudice, but nothing compared to all the things of good stuff that I was given in this country, right? So. But all types of phobia, Islamophobia, right? Don't want to be political, but I did run for city council in 2016. Go back a little bit, and I remember people calling me all kind of names, knocking doors, and people will call you different names. and some people will tell you not to be on their door. And I have to wave it to them and say, hey, have a good day, take care, right? And one thing kind of stuck with me, and I never spoke this publicly, but I will say it. Someone with a high-ranking name who was also running for office called me a Muslim Brotherhood. Someone who is in this country to infiltrate the system. And what I was doing was exactly what they called a modern jihad. This is kind of a way on the side when it comes to kind of the prejudice, the discrimination, the Islamophobia that we hear. But other than that, I had some of the best times here in Minnesota. And the reason why I work to help elevate some of those challenges is because I do believe, even the person who is doing it, and all of us, we are greater than fear. And everyone, regardless of their background, regardless of their faith or how they look like, deserves a dignity and deserves a life that they can all be proud of. So I try to continue that fight and just work with those organizations and do better for myself and for everyone that I came to know and loved here in St. Cloud and Minnesota. And I just want to encourage you all, right, to continue paying forward, to continue support those who are trying to, leave violence. A lot of the times, even people who are coming as refugees are not necessarily, they are looking for a better life, but not necessarily the first option. They are escaping violence. That's the first step. They're not really even thinking of I want to make, I want to make a better life. I want to do this. They're not thinking of all those. They're just thinking, how can I sleep tonight, knowing that I will wake up tomorrow morning safe and sound? So, and I know I'm just preaching the choir here because the people who are here are mostly folks that are, in social justice and doing the good fight. But I just want to leave that note with you guys. Continue to provide the safe space for folks who are coming. Welcome to your homes so they can feel welcome and feel part of this community and support those who are in need. Because someone earlier when I was heading here reminded me a quote of late Senator Paul Wellstone, right? We all do better when we all do better. So supporting those folks to get better and do it better is a benefit to everyone in this country, in this state, in this room tonight. I'll take questions, but I want to thank you again for your time, for providing this platform. Yes. Yeah. Doesn't matter. Or, yeah.
How did you learn English?
You said, when did I learn English? How did I learn English? It's a good question. When I was in Kenya, I went to school there until 8th grade. That's where I got introduced to English. And my English was not great when I came to US, of course, 15 years ago. I tried my best to learn it. this question of English reminds me to a funny story when I first came to U.S. I came, I think, almost on a weekend, Thursday evening. Nobody showed up to me on Friday. My sister was there 20 days prior, so I felt home. My sister made food for me, I was there. But Monday morning, I was so mad that nobody visited me, and I felt like they just brought me to U.S., but no welcome. So I went to Lutheran Social Service office, and there was a woman named Sarah. She was from Syria, and I think at that time she was the head of Omaha, Nebraska Lutheran Social Service. And she said, "Where did you learn English?" Because I started arguing with her in English, right? And she said, "When did you learn?" And I said, "The last 3 days when I was here." So, I did a lot of readings, did a lot of study, and those helped me kind of improve my English. But I will say most importantly, one thing you will realize when you come from other countries is the accent. Even if you speak English, you probably won't understand other people because of their accent. And when I arrived in US, that was kind of a shock for me. I was in Kenya, and Kenya accents a little bit had to pronounce and things like that. And I had to just learn it, and what I did was I went to a Job Corps, somewhere called Job Corps. It's a reservation. It used to be a reservation center. They do a lot of trade schools and things like that. So, weldings, paintings, different things like that you learn from it. And I stayed there for about 8 months, and I was the only Somali kid in that place. So it gives me 8 months of just speaking English, nothing else. And I feel like that also gave me a really good start in getting a good command on English. I'm still learning. Yes.
It's difficult for me to understand how you can live in that camp for that length of time. Could you say more about your life in that camp? What you did day to day, what the routine was like, what sort of recreation you had, what you did to pass the time?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. For the most part, of course, I was.
Repeat the question.
The question was, what was your day-to-day routine when you were growing up in a refugee camp in Kenya? And I think, mostly is we are a habit creature, so we develop a habit regardless of where we at. And what was really happening is, and I was going to school, I was going to primary school, so every morning I'll go to school, I come back around noon. We had, outside of so the refugees, the way they set it up is blocks. So, they number it. So they call it A, and then they will number it A1 all the way to maybe to Olof or something like that, and then they start on the other side. And each block is about 200 families. So I was A3. So, and there was only other 2 blocks that was resettled prior than us resettling, because they started A1, A2, and then A3. So I was some of the first residents in that refugee camp. But each block had huge space in between where I came from. I wouldn't say that's the same on other refugees, the other 2 refugees in there. But we build our own field, so we will play soccer every evening right after school. Schools have some recreational activities like field to play soccer, and really no other activities, no gym. That's why I'm pretty skinny still. so it was, and then of course there wasn't lightings. There was no electricity, so we will have to come back right after the sunset because it gets dark. And what's beautiful about when you don't have electricity is you can still see the sky, and the moon is bright, better when there's no lights around. That's pretty much, the food was a little bit challenged in a refugee camp. I always say that because I don't remember having lunch while I was in the refugee camp. For that 18 years, I don't recall any day that I had lunch. What we usually have is we have breakfast around 9 a.m., somewhere there. And then I will have dinner before I go to bed, which is around like 8, 9 p.m. at night. Between that time, there is really no dinner or no lunch, nothing. No family, most of the families I know couldn't really afford to have 3 meals a day. So that was one thing. And then the schools, because they were managed by NGOs and things like that, sometimes had borage or something like that to give to the students around noon. But there wasn't really food or anything like that to go by. There was no any, running water for every family. So what you do at the end of the day, which for most part my sisters used to do that until I was a little older enough to do it, but they used to go to fetch water on all those 200 people that I was talking about, have one tap, at the front of their block. So they will go there, take their jergens and stuff like that, and go fetch water every day. They go online and get it. And all these things were kind of managed folks on their own. So elderly will organize and do those things on their own so they can, there's some sort of law and order, right? kind of thing, because you have to manage each other. So they used to do that, so elderly used to do that. And then, so food, water, right? So those are basic necessities. So the food also, every 15 days, United Nations was, especially UNHCR for the refugee, was the ones that were responsible giving food. UNHCR, UN World Food Program, things like that, were responsible of giving food rations to the refugees. So a family of 6, which I was, we have a card that says we are 6 people. So every 15 days of the month, so twice a month, we'll go to the UNHCR ration food store, and we will get a ration for 6 people. Nothing less, nothing more. And you will take that home, and if you eat the food before the 15 days is over, good luck. So that was mostly kind of the day-to-day thing. Yes?
I'm just curious, how many Somali people are in the St. Cloud area about? And how many Somali people are in the St. Cloud area about? And the new immigrants coming here, where do they go? Are they pushed by the church, or pushed? How do they find their way through?
Can you say that again?
How many Somali people live in the St. Cloud area?
How many Somali people lived in St. Cloud? Okay. I don't know. I will say, if I brag, maybe I'll say about 15,000. If 15,000 from maybe Wade Park, St. Cloud area, probably 15,000. I wouldn't think more than that. A lot of those folks are also new refugees, so they arrived, let's say, for the past I would say for the past 5-6 years. So which means they're still not a citizen in the United States or something like that. You have to be here for 5 years to get your citizenship and become a naturalized citizens. So somewhere there, and majority of these folks came from either Ethiopia or Kenya. We have a large number of Ethiopia refugees, Somalis from Ethiopia here in Minnesota.
Other questions?
Thank you. It's a terrific story. What would you say would be the number one obstacle to a Somalian coming to our country at the present time?
Here in Minnesota, I think it's the language.
Would you repeat
Yes. What was the number one obstacle of the refugees, Somali refugees coming to Minnesota? I will think, language is I will say probably is a huge barrier for the community. And for anyone to integrate really well in the community and go find those opportunities that I was talking about, and improve their lives, they need to have a better, or the language proficiency to do that. If someone, my mom lives here now. I have my mom here, thankfully, and she don't speak a word of English. And a lot of the times, what that will do for folks that don't speak is isolation. She doesn't feel as I feel. I'm very alive. I go and do my things all day. I'm engaging in the communities. I make friends and families and of all kind here in Minnesota, and she can't. So she's home most of the time, and there are so many parents, elderly like that are here that can't speak the language. She wanna talk to people. My mom is not antisocial or anything. She just don't speak the language, and that's a lot of folks here in Minnesota. Thank you. And you can shout it too, I think. Go ahead. That's a very good question.
Repeat it, please.
Yes. Did my parents work when they were in the refugee camp? No. In terms of the sense of work that we know. My mom continued to be an entrepreneur. I remember my mom doing anything she can to bring food to the table. She sold milk on the streets. She will, rent a kiosk and sell vegetables and, things like that. My dad will one time open a small kiosk as well, and sell different things, like candies for the kids and tobacco and smoke cigarettes and things like that. And I know they've been doing that a lot. They used to do that a lot. And I think one of where I get my entrepreneurship mindset is probably that. But in terms of actual work, there's no jobs in there. There is no companies to work for. Some services companies like schools, of course, you have to be a teacher to become, to get those jobs or things like that. So there's few people that might be, in the teaching professions or working at the hospitals and things like that at the refugee camps. So job unemployment rate is pretty high, if we ever want to call that anyway. And then my brothers and sisters here in U.S., I have two sisters here. One of them just recently moved to Kenya. She's planning to come back, but she moved there a little bit. My other sister is here, and two other sisters are back in Kenya. They haven't had the opportunity to come here, so. My dad also went back. He couldn't adjust to the winter. And and my mom's supposed to go back as well, but she said, my youngest son is here. I'm not going anywhere as long as he's here. So she kept thinking that, so which, mom, right? So she don't want to go anywhere as long as I'm here, which I'm also grateful for.
One last question.
Yeah. I will, yeah.
Repeat it, please.
Is there a way for the Somali parents who are feeling isolated to become connected themselves? And I think that kind of happened a little bit organically. My mom knows few moms that used to be in the refugee camps. Every now and then she hang out with them or she calls. She recently get a phone that that's a smartphone, so she downloads the WhatsApp, which she can call families back home. She's on the phone a lot of the times and speaking, and she calls me for three times a day. But there's some other, of course, some elderly populations. One of the reasons I also moved to Minnesota, because I was like, my mom will also run away if I don't move to Minnesota. My dad, it's not only the cold that he left, it's because in Nebraska there wasn't really a lot of populations that he can hang out with. And that's one of the reasons why, he left. So I'm like, you know what? I want to save my mom for leaving. I want to save myself for losing my mom. So we moved to Minnesota. So she knows few people already that she can hang out with. But that's an idea that can actually, I think if there is an opportunity to bring, to provide a space for those elderly moms and fathers to just meet in a weekly basis and talk and engage with each other, or even have some activities to do, I think it will have been a great idea. I haven't seen anyone doing it yet. Thank you.
Let's give him a hand.
I realized that when I was sitting over there. No, I'm sure Abdi will stay and visit with anybody who would like to. I realized that I didn't formally introduce myself, that there may be people here who don't know that Newman Center has a staff position called the Peace and Social Justice Coordinator, because we really believe that that's a core value of our parish community, and that's my role here, and my name is Kevin Lanave. I'd ask that the people on the Peace and Social Justice Committee, would you just stand for a moment? Because I want to say something. Okay. These folks are available now and in other times to listen to the issues that you're concerned about, the questions you may have, the ideas that you may have. Please feel free to talk to any of them as well as to me. Speaking of talking to someone, you can sit down. Speaking of talking to someone, Father Derek's been here for, I think it's 4 months now, July, August, September, October. And it's been fun and interesting and meaningful to watch him sort of embrace and try to swim in the peace and social justice currents of this congregation. And if you have thoughts about how he did that tonight, I'm sure he'd welcome them from you. And I just want to say once more, the banners are available, and they're available until the 17th of November. And whether that's before or after Mass on a weekend, whether that's you're here during the day, the office is available from 9 until 1, Monday through Friday. You're welcome to come in and view them. And if you don't have enough time to do the QR code here, the sheet has how to get them on the web. The other thing I just want to mention, you were going to say something, Nancy. Yes, this is meant to be open to the public. So if there are people that you know that you think might be interested in viewing this display, by all means. And what I've been telling people is 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., Monday through Fridays, we'll just open the door and you can come in. The other thing I would just want to mention, when I put these up the first time, and I looked from up here and I looked around and I thought, that looks a lot like stations. And then I thought to myself, but I don't know that it's Stations of the Cross. It seems to me more Stations of the Resurrection. And that may not be a phrase that you're familiar with, but tomorrow at about 1:30, one of the sisters at St. Ben's is coming to view them, and she's written a booklet about the concept and practice of Stations of the Resurrection. So I'm not sure what we're going to do with all of that, but I think it's an interesting thing to ponder and to pray. Does anybody else on this Peace and Social Justice Committee have anything else you want me to speak to before we're done? Okay. Well, we'll hang out. Those of us who are on the committee, Abdi's available to visit. Thank you very much for being here.